Okay, so I'm just going to tie a selection of early spring still water patterns that kind of my go-to patterns that I use, and I know they'll work on waters that you're going to fish down here because we used them the other day. So I'm going to start off with a very good leech that we use that I tied up a number of years ago, and it's called the ruby-eyed leech, and it's using a material. I don't know. Can you see that on the screen? Yeah. So this is Arizona semi-seal, but it's a 50-50 mix of black and red semi-seal and red semi-seal. So you take and you mix it together in a blender. So 50-50 black and red, those two colors. Okay. And then I pre-tied them a dubbing brush using red copper wire, and that's going to be the body of the fly, and the tail of the fly is just going to be the dub mixture. So I'm tying this pattern on 10 2x and 8 2x curved nymph hooks, like Daiichi 1760 in a 10 and an 8, and I'm going to be tying this one on a 10 today. And I like to tie them, the original ruby-eyed I tied with a copper cone head followed by a 1/8 copper cone head followed by a 1/8 silver line glass bead, so everybody can see that. And so I just slide them on. I debarb the hook first, put the cone head, and then slide the bead on. And then I also tie the identical pattern with a gold cone head. It works. Sometimes just a little subtle change in using a copper versus a gold, depending on the clarity of the water, can really change how effective a fly can be. And it's not just with this fly, with any fly, just changing the color of if you're going to use a bead. So I'm just using some 8/0 black tying thread. And I think one of the reasons why this fly works so well is because I'm tying it left-handed, and that's probably makes a difference. All right, so I'm just going to take a bit of the dubbing now, and just a little pinch of the dubbing, and you can substitute maroon marabou. You can use that for the tail, but I just like to use the dubbing. So I'm just going to lay it down. So. And then I'm going to take the dubbing brush that I made, and you can see the red copper wire core. So the reason why I'm tying it on a red copper wire core is that when you comb this, when you use a dubbing brush and comb all the fibers out, you'll see the ribbing of the red copper through the fly. Okay, so I like that added bit of flash to it. So pretty simple, tightening in at the bend. So, and then I'm just going to wind it forward. So, and then we're going going to comb everything out so it'll look good in the end. So pretty simple fly to tie, and this is a very good pattern to fish under an indicator. Casting it out, letting it sit, and then giving it the odd, if it's calm out, giving it the odd short, slow pull. But where it really shines is wind drifting it. So you're anchored up, and you can quarter out to the side of your boat and let it drift down. Let your a slight belly in your fly line, and the indicator's just drifting along. But what I really like to do is cast into the wind, into a gentle, just a little riffle on the water, not a howling gale. And you cast straight upwind, and then you mend your foot, just keep a tight line, just pick up the slack, and that's a drag-free drift. And of course, we're tying this fly on, anything subsurface on, with a non-slip loop knot, so that you're adding that much more life. So you can tie this identical fly, like Phil Rowley ties the identical fly. He likes to tie them balanced, and I'll tie them balanced as well, so it sits horizontal in the water. And we both like to tie them on the 4640, the 60-degree jig hook, the Daiichi hook, and so that fly then sits on about a 45-degree angle. So it's just an offset angle of presentation as it's drifting through the water, but still, just the standard ruby-eyed, it catches a lot of fish for us, and we used it yesterday when Phil and I did our on the water seminar. We caught fish on the ruby-eye. So I'm just pulling some of the fibers out.
What size wire is that? Is it small?
Yeah. So what I like to do is I'll tie half a dozen of these guys up, and then you just take a measuring Pyrex measuring cup, put about a quarter cup of water in it, put it in the microwave, get it just about boiling, and then drop your flies into it, and the hot water will take the memory out of the mohair. And then you take your dubbing brush again, and you can comb it out, and you get rid of all the frizziness that's sticking out in the sides of this fly. And so you can do that on any of the leeches any flies you tie that are dubbed on or tied with a mohair. That hot water will just takes the memory out of it. And the flies, I'm just trying to imitate it now by wetting it, but you know that's what the fly is going to look like when it's finished. And I'm just going to trim that just a titch. So real simple pattern, but very effective. Again, you can tie it balanced. You can tie it on a jig hook, on a 60-degree jig hook, or you can tie it just on a straight hook. And the key is when you're going to fish it, whether you're stripping with wet lines, fishing it naked with a floating line long leader, or under an indicator, it's always going to be tied on with a non-slip loop knot to make it swim that much better. So there's the first one. Okay, so another really successful go-to pattern is what I call my BMWs. So that's a long time fly fishing friend Gordon Honey nicknamed them Brian's Marabou Wigglers. So it's just I'm using it's a maroon micro leech is what it is, but we'll tie this identical fly using different colors of marabou: brown, light olive, dark olive, black, and maroon. And you can imitate a lot of suggestive stages of insects. So like the baby damsel, we tie out of the light olive, and it's a very good damselfly imitation. The brown ones, they'll take for calabatus nymphs, just when there's just at the start of an emergence of mayflies. And then when the fish really get on the maize, then you got to get imitative. But it's a very suggestive searching pattern. This is the original color of maroon I tied the original BMW with. So a very, very effective pattern. So I'm going to be tying a pattern today on a Daiichi 1760 in a 12. So it's a 2X nymph, curved nymph hook. And I'm going to be using a 7/64 gold tungsten bead. Okay. So just debarb the hook first. Slip the bead on. So, and then we're going to, I'm just using black thread. You can use maroon colored thread as well. The key to this fly is selecting the right marabou. So this is strung marabou, and it's getting harder and harder to find really good marabou. You go through a lot of quills to get the right length of marabou and the right amount of fibers coming off it. And unfortunately, the reason why it's harder and harder to get good marabou is because turkeys aren't living long enough to grow proper feathers, proper plumage before they get bonked on the head. So now I forgot something. Okay, so I'm just going to take, so this is a blood quill, and I'm just going to I want the fibers to stand out, so I've got to comb through that, but at first I got to use some small gold copper wire. Is going to be the rib. So I'm going to tie that in. Now you can tie this fly, sometimes I'll put 2 strands of red crystal flash for the maroon ones. If I'm tying a black one, I'd still use red crystal flash. And then for the olive green ones, I'll use just light olive crystal flash. Or you can tie it without. It works, can work, excuse me, equally well with or without the crystal flash. So I just got I'm pulling off about a dozen strands like that. And so the tips are going to form the tail. So and then I'm going to twist the rest of it. So I'm going to form a nice, the fibers, the individual fibers coming off this. See how they're standing up now? And you get a nice taper up, leading up to the bead. And then I'm just going to carefully wind the gold wire, and I'm wiggling it through, so I don't want to tie down too many of those fibers. Just carefully wiggle it through. So when this fly is moving through the water, the marabou is pulsing. It's pulsating as it goes through. So. And then we'll just twist off the wire. And we'll finish it. So I think you can see on the screen, hopefully you can see how those fibers are standing out. And so we fish this again, similar. Under an indicator is deadly. It's just a nice, really good spring pattern. The other color of choice that works really well is tying the identical fly with black marabou with a silver tungsten bead and a silver wire rib. And that's the black BMW, and that is a really good pattern. And I know it catch fish down here. You know, when you throat pump a lot of fish, and when I was a biologist working, I did tons and tons of stomach samples. We would often see a preference for leeches in the guts of fish, but not big leeches, little guys. You know, that's why we like to tie these less than 3/4 of an inch in length. That's the size of leeches they like to eat. And they'll eat the big ones too, but they would always see a preference for smaller leeches, and that's why little flies like that can be so effective. Okay, so another very simple one to tie. So now we're going to go on to I'm going to tie a chronomid pupa, and so there's thousands of different color combinations out there, but one that we certainly do tie a lot of is using anti-static bag material, and so I'm just going to tie one that I have. It's a 2-wire chronomid pupa that uses a static bag as the body material. So the static bag is giving the illusion of trapped gas under the pupa that helps that pupa rise to the surface of the lake. That's the reason why Phil developed the chromie, was for the illusion of that trap gas. So this is just another variation. Lots of tires are using static bag material now, and now the latest craze, at least in British Columbia, is using window tint. And window tint comes in a couple shades of gray, and it comes in an amber color. And so you can there's fly shops now in BC that sell packages of window tint that you can slice up. And window tint has a clear backing on it. You peel the backing off, and you get this very thin sheet or strip of window tint that's really, you can really adjust or change the color of the final fly by changing the color of the thread you use. So it's like another material that you're gonna spend more time tying flies and not doing their chores at home. So anyway, that's what my wife says. So so on this fly, so this is a 14 2X nymphook, Daiichi 1760, and I've got a 764 super white bead. So I mean, some of you are probably saying, "Holy, that's a bloody big chronomid." It's a 14, 1760 Daiichi. But this would be an average size for some of the chronomids that we see coming off on our lakes. And I think I got a bomber in here. I'll just gonna put one in the vise here that you guys are gonna think I'm from Mars, but we have a lot of chronomids that big. That's tied on an 8-2X, and we call them bombers. They're so big, they look like airplanes when they're taking off. But we have hatches that occur in the summer months on our lakes. That's the size we're using. I mean, they're monstrous, right? So, yeah, when they get on these guys, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Not every lake, but certainly. We have a lot of lakes around Kamloops where they come off in the summer months. It's always the summer months when the biggest guys come off, and quite often they'll be coming off in deep water, and so you can dangle, 27, 35. We've got lakes that we dangle. So you know what dangling is? Fishing straight up and down. We're dangling at 85 feet, 90 feet. And you only put one anchor out of your boat when you're fishing that depth, because you got 2 anchors out, you're going to get in trouble. And these are big fish, and you never put your rod down. It's either in a rod holder or you're holding on to it, because when the fish take a dangled chronomid, they pound it, and the rod goes over the side of the boat. Because you're fishing with a deep 7, a type 7 full sinker, straight down, and they just see that thing down there, and for some reason they're very aggressive, and they don't just tap it. It's no love tap. They pull down on it, and next thing you know, it's gone. So actually, this is I'm gonna change fly color here. So this is static bags. I'm sure lots of you use them down here. It's a great material. And I'm just switching to a rusty brown thread color. And again, you can modify the way your final chronomid looks by your choice of color thread. So why do we tie all these different colors, or how do we know what to tie? It's because we're constantly doing throat pumps when they're on the pupa, and it's not uncommon to be on a lake and have 3 to 5 different chronomid species coming off in the same day, and they'll change. They'll start on one size, and then they'll switch back and forth, and so you could have 5 different sizes and colors of pupa coming off, and when those fish switch, you need to switch, because they get very focused on what color and size they want to eat, and that's where a throat pump shines. Is being able to find out that chronomid emergence is changing down below. We may not be seeing the adults on the surface yet, but down below, they're changing. The fish are changing on what's coming off. So I'm just using the thread now to build a bit of a taper to the fly. So we're going to rib this pattern with 2 colors of UTC wire. We're going to use the brown, it's called the copper brown in small, and then we're going to use black. So the 2 colors are going to be used. And you'll see the reason why we like to tie with two different wire colors is you'll often see that in the ribbing of a pupa, that there's, you know, a prominent color and then there's a less color beside it. And so we'll often try to get a closer imitation by selecting different wires. Or you could use colors of Flashaboo. I mean, it's endless on the different ribbings you can use. So I just got my two pieces of wire together here, just lining them up. Just get that taper built up. And then I'm going to take my static bag, my strip of static bag. So tie that in. So the whole goal of this fly is to give it that illusion of trap gas, right? And that's why. And the brown shows up a little bit through the static bag material. And I switched to the brown thread because a lot of these chronomid pupa have brown thoraxes, so that's the reason why. So I take my two wires. I'm just gonna keep them close together. You want to try to get between 5 and 7 ribs on your pupa patterns. That's a good, closer to 7 is better. And then
last chance.
And then I'm going to coat this fly with a UV resin. And you notice fly slipping. I've taken the thread and I've gone a bit part the way up the bead just to cover a little bit more of the white. When you're fishing really clear lakes, sometimes using white beads it's too much flash, it's too bright, and so that's why we tie a lot of chronomids with brown magic beads or black beads or silver nickel beads, and you can either use a white antron for tough to imitate the gills, or you can use white nail polish and put a white dot on the bead, and that can be enough. But in crystal clear water, yeah, a big white bead can be too much. So we also always carry a black waterproof felt pen with me, so you can color that bead black as well. So I think I packed my. Thought I did. I did. So I like to use this Solaris material. So it's cured with a UV flashlight. So this is Solaris. It's called Solaris Bone Dry in the extra fine application, and it's what I like about this stuff, it comes with a very, very fine applicator brush, so it's great for coating chironomids. And so while it is cured with a UV light, it's not a UV finish, it's just the cure is UV, but it creates a very nice finish. So we're just going to take this and so this fly basically becomes bomb-proof. You're going to catch a lot of fish on this fly before it blows up, and you got to tie another one on. And again, it's just adding another level of sheen, the illusion of that trap gas. And then we're just going to take the UV light. It takes about 10 seconds.
The winner of the Rocket Gator
This is bone dry. So that's a killer pattern.
number 1836.
There's lots of different UV resins out there. I've tried them all. This is the one that I've found. I've had some issues with some not quite drying totally dry, and you end up having to coat them with, you know, Hard as Hull or Sally Hansen's or something. But this stuff has been, I've been really happy with this stuff. So has everybody heard of heard of Chiabris? So Chiabris are in the chironomid family, and they're common on productive still waters. And there's we tie Chiabris pupa. So the larval stage of a chironomid is called a bloodworm, right? And the bloodworm live in the mud water interface at the bottom of the lake. And we call them bloodworms because they're usually maroony red in color. But Chiabris have a clear, jelly-like looking larval stage, and they're called glassworms. So you've probably heard of that term, glassworms. So the Chiabris larvae doesn't live in the bottom of the mud of the lake in the mud water interface. They're free swimming predators, and they look like a piece of jelly sitting horizontally, and they feed on zooplankton. And they follow the zooplankton up and down as the zooplankton migrates daily from shallow water to deeper water because they avoid sun. And so Chiabris larvae look like a piece of spaghetti from anywhere from that long to that long, depending on the ventral size of the adult, and they feed on the zooplankton. But the Chiabris pupa, it's typically light olive to medium olive green in color. And so they'll be coming off at the same time as chironomids, but the difference between a Chiabris pupa and a chironomid pupa is that the Chiabris do not have white gills. So we tie, I'm going to show you a pattern that we use that's very effective on Chiabris. And if you look at a Chiabris adult, and you had a Chiabris adult in your hand right next to a chironomid adult, the Chiabris adult will have very, very fine antenna, whereas the adult chironomid has feathery or plumose antenna, and that's how you tell the difference. So it's pretty subtle, but the fish definitely go on Chiabris big time. And I'm sure, well, I know in Montana, the lakes I fished in Montana, their Chiabris come off them. And so this is a pattern that I want to show you. So again, the key difference is Chiabris pupa don't have white gills. So there's no gills on this fly. So I'm just taking a 14 scud hook, and I'm using a 3/32 copper bead. So, okay. And then use the same brown thread. And for the body, I'm using pearl flashabou for the body, and it's the number on this is 6972. That's the code on this flashabou. Okay, so that's going to be the body, and then I'm just going to rivet with this brown copper. So you can have huge emergences of these Chiabras pupa. They don't tend to normally come off right when the ice comes off. They're usually later, you know, during late spring, early summer months is when you see them coming off. So I've just taken 2 strands of the crystal flash, and I'm going to double them over on my tying thread, and then lock it in at the back end of the hook. And I'm just going to use my thread now just to finish up building a bit of a taper. I'll tie this down to 16. I'll go one size smaller. This is and then we're just going to take our wire, rivet, you're going to fish this just like you do any other chironomid pupa, under an indicator, or you can fish it naked with a long leader. Yeah, so that's the Chiabras pupa, and I'm going to leave these flies up here on the bench if you guys want to come up and have a look at them, closer look at them, and come up and ask any questions, and I hope you enjoyed that little presentation. Thanks for attending.